Hello everyone and welcome back to the Red Path. Today I'm going to talk about my recent experience at the Arch City GT, where I am the best in faction World Eaters player, Blood for the Blood God. Let's go, and that's coming up next. Okay, welcome back. So, I want to go over the GT I just came back from yesterday, this last weekend. It was a great time, absolutely fucking wonderful event. Let's just go over the quick details. So it was in Columbus, Ohio. It was a 56 player. There were a few drops, there always are, but ended up, I think, 50 or 52 made it to the end of game 5, but still a decent size. Really well run event. Want to give a big shout out to Scott, the TO organizer, runs it. He is based up in that part of the world, and that's the second GT he's run. I couldn't make it last year, sadly, but I'm glad I made it this year because it was a phenomenal event, very well done. And if you are remotely able to travel to that part of the world, Central Ohio, I would strongly recommend it for next year. Yeah, there was amazing price support. There was a cash bar available. Accommodation was located nearby because it's on the edge of Columbus, so there's obviously lots of hotels and stuff. It was just an absolutely great time. A lot of the folks from my local area, Dayton, which is like an hour southwest, I think southwest of Columbus, a lot of those guys came up. Had 5 great opponents, 5 great games. One of the games which I'll talk about shortly is certainly a top 5 all-time game for myself, but we'll get into that shortly. So we're going to start off, I'll talk about my list. I'm not going to go into super detail about it, but I'll go over what's in there and kind of my reasoning behind some of the unit selections and things like that, because we're still early in 10th edition, and I know a lot of folks watching are going to be thinking about like how they want to structure their lists going into tournaments and things like that. So maybe there's some tips in there, spoiler alert, I went 3-2, so it's not like I won the event or anything. And the the best in faction, I was the only World Eater player. When I was leaving on the Sunday afternoon, I was done with all my games and everything. I think it was like the final 2 games were finishing up, but I wanted to get home, see my family and stuff, so I let Scott know that I was leaving. It's like, well, man, what about your prizes? I was like, yeah, it's cool. I just want to, thank you for the event and stuff. He said, well, let me get you your best in faction, and I laughed, man. It's hilarious. Only World Eater there, so of course I was best. But it's still great. It's really one of those things. It's like a nice touch. It's thoughtful. They genuinely look like, okay, we've got a World Eater. There was a Death Guard player there who would have got the same thing. Obviously, for the Eldar and the Imperial Knights, there's a bit more at stake, but it's just nice to have something to bring home, So anyway, let's go through the list. I should have some pictures up on screen now. Okay, so we should have some pictures coming up, and let me talk through what I brought. So we start off with Angron, of course, or maybe not, of course. I don't think Angron's an auto take, but I just really enjoy playing him. As I've talked about before, it's probably my best painted model that I've painted, so I'm always really proud to be able to put him out on the tabletop, and he is good. Not an auto take, but definitely a consideration for a World Eaters list. Then we had 3 Martyrs of Executions, one with the Berserker Glaive, because I'm just a massive fan of that build. Was attached to a unit of Berserkers in every game, I believe. 1 Bare Bones, and then 1 with the Favourite of Khorne. I'll touch back on that one specifically after. We had 2 units of Jackals, Skull Smasher in there. They didn't do any fighting at all because that's not what they're there for. They're just there to score points, sit there on an objective, die, and then sticky it. 3 squads of Berserkers, Eviscerator, 2 Plasma Pistols, Icon, 2 Rhinos, Combi Weapon, Combi Bolter, and a Havoc Launcher. We had a unit of Chaos Spawn. What else do we have? Oh yeah, 10 Terminators, 6 Power Fists, 2 Chain Fists, 2 Accursed, 2 Reaper autocannons, and 8 combi weapons. 390 points. Very good, very solid unit, and I'll talk about them a bit more shortly. And then to top it off, if I didn't mention, I had 2 Chaos Spawn in there. To top it off, there were 2 Bloodmasters, which are a hero HQ from the Khorne Demons line. 85 points for a 40 mil base. 4 up invul, T4, 4 wounds. Okay in combat. I think it's like 5 attacks, strength 6, -2, 3 damage. They weren't there for their combat. Okay, so let's talk about the tech of the list. We'll start with those Bloodmasters. As I said, they're 40 mil bases, single models, and they have deep strike, and they are the cheapest deep striking unit we have access to. Cheapest thing from the Flesh Hounds are cheaper, but then you've got 5 oval bases, which is a lot easier to screen out. So for a support character, the Mo is cheaper, but he can strap reserve, but not deep strike, which is important for turn 2. Bloodmasters, they just teleport in, they'll investigate signals, they'll deploy teleport homer, score engage in all fronts, behind enemy lines, stuff like that. They consistently scored me points in almost every game. Solid picks, I don't think 2 is necessary. My new list that I'm testing out at the moment has 1. Until we get a better choice. I think it's something you should consider just to play the mission. We'll go into the Terminators now. Terminators are probably our best infantry. 8-bound exalted, 8-bound are overcosted. Berserkers are fine, but they're more of a utility unit, like a play the mission unit, or if you're lucky enough to go into like a SWAT horde army, they'll play fine then. But generally, like they're not damaging vehicles or tough monsters anymore. That's not their role, and that's fine. They do need their points adjusted, I think, a little bit down, but that's not what this video is about. I still had 3 of them because with the Master of Executions in there, they're one of the few counters we have available for things like Custodes and other combat armies or armies that are good at combat. And they're ablative wounds for the Berserker Glaive Mo. Anyway, I was talking about Terminators, sorry. The Terminators, it's just a big brick of angry kill. I don't know how to explain it. You rapid ingress them, or you deep strike them if you have to, or you start them on the board. Whatever the mission and the opponent is wanting or doesn't want you to do is what you're going to do with them. And they delete stuff, and they tank an awful lot. T5, 3 wounds, 2 up, 4 up, and then you can put -1 damage on them in combat, and you can give them 6 up, feel no pain. They will absorb a lot of firepower, typically. Great unit. They don't seem to fit my play style, however. So I'm probably dropping them, but that is not because the unit is bad, it's because it didn't feel quite right for me. And then, really, the Berserker Glaive Mo, you should probably know about this as a World Eaters player, or if you're not a World Eaters player, let me tell you why. So, the Master of Execution's 80-point model, 5 attacks, 6 on the charge, and rerolls hits and wounds against characters. Has devastating wounds with precision in combat, with a strength 6 to 7 or 7 to 8, I can't remember off the top of my head, -2, 2 damage, axe, obviously 2 more wounds on 6s, and you can cherry pick. You're fishing for 6s with the re-rolls there against character units. You give him 5 Berserkers, give him some ablative wounds, and he gives them some fight first as some protection, and it's a nice little unit that runs around picking up characters. The Berserker Glaive adds D3 attacks and damage to the melee weapon of the unit that has it. On a Master of Executions, that's an average of an extra 2 attacks and making him damage 4. Quite often, I think it happened in 3 games, or 3 times over the weekend, he got the 3 on the D3, so he would go up to 9 attacks, fishing for 6s. If you throw sustained on there as well, it's brutal. He did some work, really picked up some units. Then we have the Master of Executions with Favourite of Khorne, which allows you to re-roll your Blessings table. Absolutely necessary if you're running Angron. Stick them in Strap Reserve unless you absolutely have to have them on the table for Custodes or something. And until round 3, they're invincible because you can't kill a unit that's not on the table. And you are allowed to use the Favourite of Khorne reroll or ability whilst they're off the table. That is in the designer's commentary. It's 100% legal and allowed, which was clutch because Angron came back in the first 4 games I played And anyone who was there who's watching this will know it was me, because I was the fella yelling blood for the blood god really loud when it happened. And I've seen some comments in my local Discord where people were kind of shocked and thought there was a real fight going on the first time. But yeah, so that's awesome. It just really helps Angron, because Angron just keeps coming back, and Angron coming back won me the games that I won and kept me in one of the games that I lost. Speaking of which, let's talk about those games. So, round one, again, I said this was a 56-player event. There were 56 to start with, or maybe 55. I can't remember if someone dropped at the start. Either way, over 50 players, and I paired into Austin from my local gaming group, so the Dayton scene. There was, I think, about 7, maybe 8 of us total there from that area. So, less than 20% of the field were people that I knew from, local area. I'd never played Austin, but we've been at a lot of the same events, obviously. And he brought Thousand Sons, and we paired into each other. I was like, man, nothing, wrong with it, but you don't want to play sort of local players. You want to play people you've never met before. But either way, it was a good game. Austin brought Thousand Sons. Austin ended up third in the whole event. He beat me 100-47. It was a good game. It wasn't over till it was over. And the reason, or the point where I knew it was over, was when Angron came back. So he died, which is fine, because I play him aggressively to start with, typically. Just to trade into anything that my opponent will give me. And I kind of rely on that revival, which I know might not sound great. But the odds of Angron reviving are actually pretty good in this list, with the amount of rerolls I can sort of like throw in. Anyway, so he died. Had some, it was a fairly good sparring match. We had some good trades. It was pretty even. However, Angron came back. I put him behind what is basically an obscuring piece of terrain. So it was a rapid ingress. So the next turn he'd be able to come out and go toe-to-toe with Magnus, because I knew Magnus was the linchpin of the army. You've got to get rid of those Cabal points. You've got to bring them down. And I'd taken out a couple characters with Master Executions already. And if I could get Magnus down, it would allow me to bring what was my reserves, my backfield, out to be more aggressive and kind of push forward for a late game surge. However, and this is nothing against Austin, because he had told me everything that could have happened and would happen and did happen pre-game and during. He was reminding me and stuff. And I put Angron down within whatever range it was. I want to say 24 inches, maybe it's 12 inches, can't remember. And he's like, okay, here we go. And did the mortal wound, indirect, whatever the hell that combo is called. And I want to say it one-shotted Angron. He may have done some other shooting first in his shooting phase, but essentially Magnus did a solid amount of mortal wounds to Angron as soon as he came down, or in the shooting phase after when he came down. And Angron just died again. And he didn't come back a second time that game. But so I lost that one 147, but it was a really good game. And like I said, it wasn't over till it was over. It wasn't like it was a turn one blowout or anything. We were throwing punches really solidly at each other. I should be able to have the score. I have like pictures of the games going on as I'm talking, but I should be able to have the score up right now, and you can see, hopefully, I'm not bullshitting you, and the scoring was fairly decent, like the first half of the game, and then you can probably tell roughly where Angron died, because I can't remember. I want to say it was round 3 or the top of round 4 when he died the second time. Anyway, I started off the tournament with a loss. It happens. It was a good game, so no feels bad. So we're going into round 2. We actually had lunch after this, so I went out, got me something to eat, cleared my head. Then the pairings went up, and I seen going into Custodes. I'm like, are you shitting me? Probably the worst, a top 3 worst matchup for World Eaters right now is Custodes, just because they don't care about our combat, quite frankly. And I was like, man, to do that after losing, to go, but that happens. That is the nature of, certainly of a GT, because that's how 40k works. Anyway, so I go up to my table, and my opponent is Aaron. Not met him before, so we had a little chat first because we had a bit of extra time because we had the lunch break before, like I said, and we had a chat, talked about our armies, went over our rules, got everything set up, and we had plenty of time to play the game. Was a really good match. Really enjoyed the match. And Aaron was a solid player, really nice guy. I did manage to get the win. Again, there should be photos up on the screen. His list was a little different to, I suppose, what the expected meta custodes list is. He had a Telemon in there, which was really cool. Did have a Calidus, whatever their flying tank is, and plenty of Custodian Guard, and Trajan was in there. And it was a tough army, but it was a really good game, and I won't say I was lucky, because you win the games you win and you lose the games you lose. There's always a little bit of luck involved, but you have to accept your wins and accept your losses. And I won that game 90-57. I think the aspects of my list which I manufactured to score me points came off really well, and I think the fact that custodes are generally quite elite, smaller unit count, smaller footprint, things like that, overall allowed me to do that. I scored well on I believe most of the mobility secondaries and things like that. So that was good. I was 1-1. I was happy. We're getting to the end of the day's third round. Like, okay, if I can end the game on a positive, that would be awesome. So I faced Tyranids. Faced Dustin Tyranids. And I want to say, like, when he rocked up, he had his display board, or it was like his case for his Tyranids was like a display board, so it was all in theme with his army, and you should see some pictures now. So first off, a beautiful army. Tyranids, you could tell he was a long-time Tyranid player, because he had 1,000 gaunts. I don't know how many damn gaunts there were in that army. There was a lot. I want to say there were 3 squads of 20 and a squad of 10, and then several squads of Gene Stealers. It was a horde. It was a gaunt carpet, and there were some big monsters in there as well. The Winged Hive Tyrant, Carnifex, some other stuff. And my God, it was a scary sight before me. However, as a World Eater, the one thing we've got is volume of OK melee into T3 stuff. That's one thing we can do well, is kill a lot of T3. And this is the game, I said at the beginning, I had one of my top 5. I think certainly a top 3 game. There's not been many games I've had as memorable as this. I'm trying to think. I mean, obviously I had my Grey Knights Thunderhawk game at the LVO, and there's been several games, but yeah, first of all, absolutely great guy. We had a great chat playing. I mean, I did with everyone, but this game I have to single out. Great guy. We had some good banter going on and stuff, and like, there were scenes in the battle happening where we was visualizing what was happening. But essentially, tactically wise, I guess, I knew that a lot of the stuff he would push at me, the gaunts, basically, Hormagaunts are the slicey ones, I think. Whatever, the melee ones, they would struggle into even a Rhino. I knew he would have volume of attacks and stuff, but I knew it would take him multiple combats and it would bog him down. So I knew I would have to kind of do a feint. So I had a flank with a Rhino, Berserkers, some Jackals. Can't remember what else, if anything, was there. So I could pull some of his army there, and it worked. He sent over Gene Stealers, 2 of the squads of Termagaunts, and the Winged Hive Tyrant come over there. I sacrificed my Killing Mo into there, sacrificed a couple squads of Berserkers and Jackals, and basically it came down to the humble Rhino parking between a wall and some other scenery on the objective, and I didn't control the objective, of course, but he hit me with his gaunts, and they just had to keep hitting me, and it just wasn't killing me, which allowed me Terminators and Angron on the other side with the rest of my army to come up and kind of push and take out his entire flank and start pushing into his backfield. It was a sort of like unorthodox tactical move from the World Eaters for once, rather than just charging headlong in. But it's the game you play, right? It's a competitive game, but it was also cinematic, because obviously if things deep striking in and Angron coming back and things like that, it felt right. It's like, although it was made obviously from my perspective with a tactical reason, it was still like, the Latara Saren in the Conqueror's like, all right, fuck it, just land and kill whatever you see. Like, don't worry about reinforcements, just get there and kill, and just like orders everyone to be thrown down and just kill anything that moves, and they did. However, the score was a 78-75 win, and it was so close. It honestly wasn't won until I think it was the last combat of the game, or like the last turn of the game. Certainly, there was some things happening, and the points would have swung either way depending on how certain units died and things like that. So it that's almost the perfect game of 40k when it's not decided until the last sort of combat or the last shooting phase or what have you. And yeah, it was a phenomenal game. And after each of my games, I was giving everyone a dice, because every game was good. So I gave everyone a dice, say thanks for the game. And the next day, Dustin came and he actually gave me. Let's see. Hopefully this will focus. It's not going to focus. There. Come on, focus. Yeah, there we go. He gave me one of his gaunts. I think that's a Termagaunt that he went home to collect, so he had a spare one. That's like such a cool thing. I very much doubt you're watching this, Dustin, but should you or someone who knows him watch this, I really appreciate it. That's such a cool thing, because I am going to find a way to get that model in my army as like a jackal or something. I'm not going to repaint it. I might have to change the base a little bit just to line it up, but yeah, he's going to be in there. But yeah, awesome way to end the first day. Great game, and obviously I'm feeling super good. I'm on a 2-1, feeling hype. So yeah, that was it. That was the end. I was doing well. I'd had 2 decent wins, scoring decent well, and my loss, although it was a significant loss, it was still a good game, and I didn't feel that I had lost the game before it started. Plus, it was my first time playing T-Sons in 10th, and now I know about them, and I can warn you, they shoot. Oh, fucking hell, they shoot. Anyway, so we go on to the next day. Day 2, Sunday morning, and I'm paired into Astra Militarum, and I've got a little bit of PTSD type stuff. That's maybe a bit harsh, but I've had some bad experiences with Guard. Not like the players, just we all know how Guard have been pre-10th edition, the last 6 months or so, been pretty oppressive, and I've run afoul of them a few times. And I was like, man, okay, it's all right. I'm 2-1. At this point, it's you deserve what you get. And this was a chap called Ben, another, once again, really great opponent, really nice guy. We had a really good chat. And he had this really nice looking mechanized list. It was just vehicles, just tanks. Had Shadow Sword, Rogal Dawn, 3 or 4 Lehman Russes, the Hellhound or the Chemhound, some kind of tank that shoots chemical things that break the Geneva Convention, and a Manticore and a Basilisk, and then he had the tiny exploding. I can't remember what it's called. I think it deep strikes and it explodes. Whatever. It's cool. So armor is something I have a lot of trouble dealing with. I've got Angron. He's really the only anti-armor I've got in the list. So I do struggle. But I was like, okay, we play the mission. We play the game that's put in front of us, and we try and survive, and we try and play on points. I can use what I have to, overpower them with objective control to take objectives, and if I die, I die. This game, honestly, I think was decided on the fact that my Terminators tanked his entire army. I think so, because there was right. So let's set the scene. I hid everything. Obviously, I could use obscuring for Angron because he didn't have any towering units. So I obscured everything. I believe he went first, so had to come out a little bit, and then I came out a little bit. Then he came out a bit more, and I set Angron up for a 4-inch charge on his Shadow Sword. I think I baited out Overwatch elsewhere, intentionally, and I had a 4-inch charge with Angron, and I didn't have it. I used a CP earlier, but I can't remember what it was for. Probably a command reroll or something like that. And I failed the 4-inch charge into the Shadow Sword with Angron, and that didn't feel great. I think that was turn 2. So of course Angron is then just swatted aside in the next shooting phase, which was a bit of a problem. However, Angron came back almost immediately in the next round when I rolled my thing, I did a favoured reroll and got the 666. Yelled blood for the blood god. Angron comes down again. And I'm like, okay, we still got a game. Obviously, that scuppers Ben's plans, but that's the rules. Following this, my Terminators had come in and had moved to attack the Rogel Dawn on an objective. Or maybe it was a Russ first and then the Rogel Dawn. And just stayed in combat whilst it kept shooting them and things were driving in and tank shocking them, I believe, or it would fall back and other things would shoot them. They lasted 4 of the 5 rounds they were in combat. At the end of the game, there was one left with 1 or 2 wounds. They just took everything. And they kept punching the tank. And because they didn't have the charge bonus, like they kept whittling down. I was left with the 2 chain fists left. And they kept whiffing. And then in the last turn, the last round, he finally just got through the side plating of the Rogel Dawn and yanked out the driver and crushed him in his chain fist. And the tank went, and I was left holding the objective, which for that, I can't remember the name of the primary. It's the one where you score up to 10 per round, and at the end of the game you can score like 25 victory points, which was obviously massive for that lone Terminator killing the OC5 tank and being alive and passing battle shock, which won me the game. But yeah, great opponent again. He played really well. I failed a 4-inch charge, but that will happen. Like he was telling me afterwards, like, you know, because I was saying, man, like there were certain things which won me that game, and he was like, yeah, but you failed a 4-inch charge, which if you'd have taken the Shadow Sword out, which is what he was charging, his game would have been over a lot sooner. So, which was great. It's nice when your opponent is like, you know, don't feel like it was luck, because you had bad luck as well. We both had some horrendous rolls and some really strong rolls, things like that. It was just, you know, it was a game, and again, it was a very close 90-80, and it absolutely could have been the other way round if, like, that one tank had lived at the end, things like that. There was a couple little things, but it was still a good game, or a good score, and a really great game, and another great opponent. So, I was at 3-1, which is important for me because I've never gone better than 3-2 at a tournament, at a GT, well, outside of like 6 rounds and stuff where I went 3-3, whatever it was. But I've never done better than 3-2 at 5 round, and I've never won 3 games in a row at a tournament. RTT, GT, Super Major, nothing. I can go, you know, 2-1-1 or something like that, but I've not won 3 in a row, and I actually got that here. So I got my 3 wins in a row, which is really important for me as I watch my progress competitively. It's my 4th GT. First one I went 1-4, second one I went 2-1-2, and then my 3rd and 4th, the 2 more recent ones this year, I went 3-2 both times. So I'm obviously on the right trajectory, and I'm still chasing that 4-1. Once I get that, then I go for the 5-0. But yeah, so this takes me into game 5. And I'm having, we're on break, I'm having a drink, and I'm standing outside enjoying the sunshine. And the parents go up, and I see the word Eldari. Then I see the player, Dave, who's another player from my local scene. I've played him before, played him in 9th edition at a charity event. Really good player, really nice guy, get on with him fine, but you know, we chat in Discord and stuff. And we paired into each other. And he's got Eldar with a Wraith Knight. The one thing I didn't want to happen. Anyway, okay, it's alright, it's round 5. I'm, you know, in contention here for a 4-1 and like a top 10 finish probably. And okay, so we're chatting and I'm looking over his army, and I straight up to him, I was like, okay, I know a little bit about Eldar right now. Don't bother explaining any of your rules. You do what you need to do, and if I look confused, just tell me it's Eldar bullshit, because I'm fully aware you've got a way of breaking almost every rule in the game. That's how Eldar always is, and how they always will be. But like I didn't go in expecting to win, but I also didn't go in expecting to lose. Like, I was going to play my game. You got to play the game that you're given. Some games are just a bit harder than others. And unfortunately, things didn't quite go my way. So I didn't go first, which I don't think really made much difference, because I put Angron and the Terminators in reserve, because I knew that Wraith Knight was just going to delete anything, because we were playing on the GW Open, like the 9th edition terrain. That's because they like Scott and his, I think it's Death or Glory, we've just had a terrain change competitively to the new GW format. No one's had time to convert to that, so absolutely fine. Everyone knew this when the event was announced. This wasn't a shock to anyone, but it's obviously very beneficial to towering units, which is again why I constructed my list to be able to keep my important assets off the table. So that's what I did. Everything else was as hidden as I could possibly do it. The problem was we were in Search and Destroy, which is table quarters for deployment, so I only had one large ruin to use. I couldn't use the other one that you would have been able to use on Hammer and Anvil or Dawn of War, or even some of the like slanted. One piece of terrain to hide 2 rhinos, 20 jackals, 15 berserkers, 2 spawn, and probably whatever else I'm forgetting here. I did everything I could. The rhinos were all inside. The berserkers were inside the rhinos. They each had masters attached to them. I'd sort of strung jackals around. I'd put one on an objective, hoping it'd take the bait and just wipe them so I could sticky it. And I'd push the rhinos up, because the first floor was line of sight blocking. But there was no way I could just hide them completely. So he got to kill both rhinos, about 8 berserkers, a squad of jackals, and then 3 or 4 from the other squad of jackals in his turn 1 shooting phase, just because of the mobility of like his war walkers that can scout move and then come out. The Wraith Knight being able to delete the rhinos, his indirect fire from Night Spinner maybe. So yeah, I lost a significant amount turn 1, which was a shame. And then I can't remember what the secondaries I drew were, but I don't think I scored them. Again, the scores or the results will be up on the screen. I maybe got one secondary in this game. Effectively, what happened was by round 3, I had nothing left. Angron deep struck in and was immediately vaporized, and because there was nowhere I could place him that he couldn't be shot, because he's taller than the first floor of windows, and they were the only true line of sight blocking against the Wraith Knight. And I couldn't get to the Wraith Knight because I had nothing that could get there fast enough through all of his screening units, so that I had no way of doing anything to get Angron, which was the only unit which realistically was going to stop the Wraith Knight to allow me to actually even reach out and touch things. I managed to finagle some charges into the Incarn. I got my 2 or 3 Masters of Execution in there and about 4 Berserkers, and not saying I whiffed, but my glaive Mo had been killed, so I got 2 regular Mo's basically and 3 or 4 Berserkers, and obviously the half damage, because you half damage before it's turned into mortals with devastating, so they were only doing 1 mortal wound on a 6, just barely scratched the Incarn. I don't think I killed a single model on his army. So basically in round 3, I want to say it was round 3, I brought my Terminators in to take an objective. I was banking, and this is how bad it was, I was banking on a 9-inch charge to take an objective so I'd be able to score some primary, and there was some secondary points at stake. However, he phantasmed the unit that they would have been able to charge, so I couldn't even roll a 9-inch charge on them. So I didn't even get to see if I could do it with a CP reroll. So unfortunately, they were just out of the game. He could just ignore them now because they would be stuck, and it would take them 2 turns to even get a charge on anything, by which point the game would be decided. But it was the only play I had at the time, and he had told me about Phantasm, and as I was playing him, he said as I was placing him, he said, I can probably just Phantasm. I was like, well, dude, I've got to put them somewhere. At least use a resource. Everything else was so well screened. So I lost that game 100 to 22. We drew the cards, and sort of he said, okay, so I'll move here. And like mathematically, there's no way 4 jackals survive against, a squad of warp spiders with their flamers and combat and things like that. I don't typically talk out games, and this was a talk out, but it wasn't, because I had lost, aside from my Terminators, I had 4 jackals. Yeah, that's it. I had 4 jackals, my Terminators, and I think 1 Berserker, who in his turn, the Incarn was right there. you know, at that point I had lost the game and he was already ahead by like 60 points at that point. So we said, okay, so you move here, you kill them. Yep, that happens. There's no way you can't kill the Terminators who will not be able to react because he can just quickly get all of his shooting to get angles on them and they just can't hide. So, yeah, we talked out or discussed how it was. He drew his cards. Yep, you score that. Oh, you use your CP to get rid of that one and do that, whatever. That was it. So I lost 122. That's Eldar, though. Or that's certainly a Wraith Knight, because I did beat Eldar last month, but they didn't have a Wraith Knight. And that was a big deal. Everything else I can handle. I can weather the storm, I feel. But World Eaters don't really have a response to the Wraith Knight. I'd like to hear it if someone thinks we do, but I can't figure it out. Nevertheless, I ended up 3-2. I want to say I was 18th overall out of 56, which I was super happy with. Really good result. But overall, it was the fact that I had 5 great games. Even losing 122, me and Dave were just sort of laughing about things, and you know, it's like, it's Eldar bullshit, man. I tell him, you know, hey, you killed that Jackal, or you've activated my trap card, I've got 2+ invul across the army, and it's Eldar bullshit. Just stupid things like that. So you know, you got to have a laugh even when the game is essentially lost from the first turn roll off, because that will happen at events. Certainly in game 5 of events, you'll face that hard counter army or that very, very strong meta army. And you got to roll with the punches. Okay, I lost the game. I didn't get the 4-1 I was desperately hoping for, but I got 3-2, and I had 5 great opponents, and I had one of the best games I've ever played with the Tyranids, Dustin. And yeah, I can't say a bad thing. I'm happy I went 3-2, because if I did better, I may have had a different path and maybe didn't run into those players. So yeah, that's that. Anyway, let's wrap this up, because I've been blathering on for a while now. I know this isn't everyone's cup of tea for content, but I wanted to talk about this because I had some questions in the Discord about certain aspects of the list and, you know, how the event went and stuff like that. And it's just the easiest way to get all the information out there. Anyway, let's wrap this up. If you've enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, all that bullshit. Do come and join us in the Discord. It's free. We just chat and have a lot of cool conversations about World Eaters, Chaos, and everything else in between. If you say anything that can be taken out of context, we will screen grab it and post it in the quotes taken out of context channel. And don't use the acronym for Demon Prince, because you'll get got. But other than that, yeah, check out our stuff on Spotify and follow us on Twitch to see Dara paint and hear his wonderful voice as he tells you about things that I have no interest in, because hobbying fucking sucks. But yeah, that's it from me, folks. Until the next one, stay healthy, stay safe, and kill main burn.